This is the story of a man who borrowed $50, drove a beat-up car, and started a business that would change the world. This is the story of Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, a story of struggle, doubt, and ultimate triumph. Shoe Dog, the real story of Phil Knight and Nike. Philip Hampson Knight was not born into wealth. He wasn't predestined for success. He was born in 1938 in Portland, Oregon. An ordinary kid with an ordinary life, but with an extraordinary drive to keep questioning the world around him. In high school and college, Phil was a runner. In fact, he wasn't just a runner. He was driven by the discipline of the track. Running taught him something most people never learn. Success isn't a sprint. It's a relentless race with no finish line. And the person running beside you could be your own doubt. After graduating from the University of Oregon, where his coach was Bill Bowerman, a relentless innovator who saw the science in every stride, Knight decided to continue his education. He entered Stanford Graduate School of Business and wrote a paper that would later become legendary. The premise was simple and bold. Japanese running shoes could outsell German ones in America. He wrote that over and over again, not as a naive dream, but as a reasoned business hypothesis. After Stanford, most people would have taken a safe path, a secure job, a good salary, stability. But Knight was restless. He wanted something riskier, something that could actually change his life, not just sustain it. So he took a trip around the world. In Kobe, Japan, he walked into a small shoe factory and saw a pair of Onitsuka Tiger running shoes. They were light, flexible, and beautifully made. More importantly, they were different. Knight saw potential where most Americans saw obscurity. He negotiated a deal that allowed him to import these shoes into the United States with nothing but $50 borrowed from his father, a used Plymouth Valiant, and belief in his idea. He began selling shoes out of the trunk of his car at track meets. He called his company Blue Ribbon Sports. That $50, the entire seed capital, was borrowed, not earned. It was a humble beginning, but it marked the birth of one of the most iconic brands in human history. In year one, Knight made about $8,000. It wasn't enough, it wasn't glamorous, but it was real. Blue Ribbon Sports was not a fairy tale, it was a grinding struggle. Knight was young and inexperienced. He had no retail background. He had no real manufacturing understanding. What he did have was stubborn persistence, the kind that wakes before sunrise and works after midnight. The relationship with the Japanese supplier was fraught. Delays happened. Quality wasn't always consistent. Sometimes the shipment never arrived. Retailers pressured him. Competitors laughed. The market was skeptical. In his memoir, Shoe Dog, Knight wrote, "The fear of failure was a constant companion. Every step forward felt like walking on thin ice, but stopping wasn't an option." And that's the truth about life for most founders. Success is not one big breakthrough. It's many small breakthroughs, born from consistent courage. Knight wasn't hiding his fear. He embraced it. Knight didn't build Nike alone. He gathered a group he later called the weirdest, the most obsessive, the most loyal people he could find. Some called them crazy. Some said they weren't business material. But Knight saw loyalty, hunger, and shared ambition. Together, they were not polished. They were not perfect. They were passionate. They were the ones who answered the phone at 10 p.m., who took late-night calls about supplier issues, who stayed up studying every detail of shoe design and marketing. This small team became the engine behind Nike. They were not polished executives. They were young risk takers. They were hungry. In 1971, Blue Ribbon Sports changed its name, not just as a rebranding, but as a rebirth. The new name was simple, powerful, Nike, named after the Greek goddess of victory. This would become a symbol that millions would one day wear, not just on their shoes, but in their mindset. The logo, the iconic swoosh, was designed by a student, Carolyn Davidson, for just $35. At first, Knight didn't love it, but the simplicity of that checkmark-like curve became one of the most recognizable symbols in the world. Nike began creating its own shoes, not just importing them. Their first big hit was the Waffle Trainer, a shoe whose sole pattern came from Knight's coach, Bill Bowerman, pouring rubber into his wife's waffle iron. It wasn't planned. It wasn't corporate. It was curiosity, plus experimentation. And it worked. Nike's growth wasn't smooth. They faced lawsuits, supply chain breakdowns, bank pressure, strained relationships, and legal battles with Onitsuka, the Japanese brand they originally distributed. Many times, Nike stood on the edge of collapse. Retailers withheld orders. Factories delayed shipments. Cash was tight. And for every success story, there was a moment where Knight wondered, did I push too far? But he didn't quit. He once said something profound that captures the essence of his journey. If you see a problem, that means you're close to the solution. He didn't run from problems. He ran through them. Knight never wanted the spotlight. He didn't crave media attention. In fact, he often shunned it. He was not a motivational speaker. He was not a celebrity. He was not a salesman. He was a runner. And runners, real ones, have one thing in common. They don't stop when it's hard. They keep going just one more mile. They push past the voice in their head that says quit. Nike's success was not overnight. It was the product of countless failures, countless resets, countless days when the world told Knight no. His belief was simple. Hard work plus time equals mastery. If you never quit. That's a truth not often told in startup culture, which loves quick success stories and instant virality. But Nike's real story was years of grit before any glory. Today, Nike is not just a brand. It's a cultural symbol, a global powerhouse, a voice that stands for ambition, perseverance, and victory. The slogan, "Just do it," is not a catchphrase. It's a lifestyle manifesto. It carries the spirit of every runner who ever pushed through pain. It echoes the truth that the world doesn't hand out greatness. You earn it. Knight turned a borrowed $50 into a multi-billion-dollar empire. But that wasn't luck. That was relentless dedication. And for millions of Americans, athletes, entrepreneurs, dreamers, his story is proof that ordinary beginnings don't limit extraordinary endings. Fear doesn't mean stop. It means you care. Failure is not a reason to quit. It's a step toward mastery. Too often, business stories hide the struggle. They rewrite the narrative into something tidy and linear. But Nike's story and Phil Knight's life was messy, uncertain, painful, exhilarating, and human. He wasn't born a genius. He wasn't handed success. He earned it, not with luck, but with countless days of perseverance when giving up seemed easier. That honesty is why his memoir, Shoe Dog, resonates with millions, because it doesn't just show a brand. It shows a man wrestling with doubt, fear, ambition, loyalty, and identity. And it shows something even bigger. Greatness is not born. It is built, one decision at a time, often in silence, often in struggle. Today, Nike is a global icon. Just do it is more than a slogan. It's a philosophy. Knight turned $50 into a multi-billion-dollar empire. But more importantly, he built a story of courage, persistence, and belief in the impossible. This is the real story behind Nike, not a fairy tale of instant success, but a journey of struggle, failure, and triumph. Phil Knight shows us that ordinary beginnings don't limit extraordinary endings. That fear isn't a reason to stop, but a reminder you care. That greatness is built, one brave decision at a time. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more true stories of ambition, struggle, and victory. Remember, every great journey starts with a single step, and sometimes $50, a dream, and a beat-up car.